Hi, everyone. It's your favorite MLB newsbreaker, Bob Nightingale, and you're listening to the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. Enjoy the show, and thank God for Jeffrey Springs.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I am your host, Zang. I will be running a solo show today. First off, I do want to start just with some quick apologies for the delay on this one. Was doing some family stuff Sunday evening, that would be, and then my schedule was a little bit mixed up. You don't need to hear it all, but didn't know exactly when I'd be able to record Monday, so apologies that this is obviously getting out a little bit late, but hopefully it's still worth a listen, as, obviously there was quite a lot going on this week between, 11-day matchups and quite a few trades there. So we are here recapping week number 17. Boy, it's been a minute since I've talked to everyone. I'm feeling myself getting back to back into the flow of this a little bit. 11-day matchups, obviously those nice 2-week ones with the All-Star break. A lot of fun. Let's get started right away with the matchup minute. The Arctic Real Survivors at 7-9 took on the 8-8 Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes. The Real Survivors looking to tie them in record and bring it down to just their total points scored for standings. Neither team scored at all on Thursday, so it was a tie game to start the week off. But on Friday, Southwest Kansas had 110 off of 20 from Keter Montero, 21 from Bailey Ober, and 31 from Jake Bennett as their starters showed out well. Good pitching in the Arctic as well, as Garrett Cole had 23 and Landon Roop had 32. The Real Survivors stole the lead on Saturday, however, scoring 108 points, 10 from Esmeralyn Valdez, 24 from Jesus Luzardo, and 32 from Shane Bieber. Another 100-plus day helped them hold that lead through Sunday, as they scored 127, 14 from Alex Bregman, and 26 from Hunter Goodman. Over on the other side, 12 from Jazz Chisholm was great for the Coyotes, but a -7 from Noah Cameron is not what you want out of your starters. Survivors held through Monday and Tuesday as well, scoring 98 and 41, 54 to 72 over on the other side. Some standout performances on those days. Mookie had 21 points on Monday. Zach Thornton, 29, in what has continued to be a strong start for the Real Survivors. An unfortunate -19 from Framber on Tuesday. Never like to see that, and it would end up being his final start in the Arctic. Kumar Rocker had 34 for the Coyotes on Tuesday as well. Wednesday saw the Real Survivors have their third 100-plus day of the week, this time with 130. 26 points from Landon Roop, who has continued his upward trend once again, and then 31 each from both Bubba Chandler and Garrett Cole, with Keter Montero scoring at 27 over on the other side. Shane Bieber had 33 on Thursday for the Real Survivors as they held that lead, and the same would be true through a quiet weekend for both teams outside of the 112-point day for Southwest Kansas, where they got 31 in a bounce-back performance from Noah Cameron. Will Warren's -6 on the final day was a bit of a stain, but it was an easy Saturday to Sunday, that's the first Saturday to the final Sunday, win for the Real Survivors, as they did take the matchup 779 to 662. 117 points separating the two of them, and the Real Survivors really dominated on all fronts, on the pitching side and on the hitting side. They did surrender a few more home runs, but blew them out of the water in innings pitched, 116 to 97. Blew them out of the water in Ks, 120 to 80. And on the hitting side as well, led in the at-bats. They were tied in home runs, but kept the strikeouts to a minimum and really just put in a good shift. Some great performances from Hunter Goodman, who had 41 for the Survivors, 39 for Esmeralyn Valdez, who was, of course, traded for at the beginning of this week. And then just great stuff from the pitchers as well. Shane Bieber, who has continued to be really strong since his trade over here, 65 points on the week, 54 for Garrett Cole as well, who is looking like his old self once again. For the Coyotes, Cater Montero or Keeter Montero? KJ, you need to let me know. Definitely let me know in the morning. I can never remember which one it is. I need some kind of mnemonic. And Jake Bennett there were a couple of standout pitchers for the Coyotes. And yeah, these two teams now tied in record, both at 8-9. One more standout I did want to mention for the Coyotes, Gabriel Moreno, 57 points on the week. He was the number 5 best batter. And the aforementioned Shane Bieber was number 5 on the potent pitchers list with 65. Obviously, something that you love to see in the week that he was traded over to the Arctic. Let's move on now to our second matchup as we see the Arizona Asphalt take on the Sault Ste. Marie Locks. Sault Ste. Marie taking an 11-point lead on Thursday as they scored those 11 points. But a 61-point day from the Asphalt on Friday would give them the lead. Adames, Max Muncy, and Ellie De La Cruz all scoring 11. Kind of love when that happens with 3 guys. Cody Clemens had 14 for them on Saturday as they extended their lead despite 16 from TJ Rumfield for the Locks and a just 3-point day from Taj Bradley. Things got a little dicey on Sunday for the Asphalt as Eduardo Rodriguez had a -4-point day and Blaze Jordan had a strong 12 for the Locks, but Yoshinobu Yamamoto came in the evening to save the day for Arizona, scoring up 44 points. Great day on Monday for the Locks, despite not being able to take back that lead. But Dylan Dingler had 21 points, Andrew Vaughn with 12. While over on the other side, Miguel Vargas scored 11 for the Asphalt in their 93-point day. 30 points for the Asphalt on Tuesday and 22 for the Locks. 13 from Dylan Dingler. Was certainly a good way to start things off, but the -7s from both Kevin Gausman and Noah Schultz certainly sunk that ship just a little bit. Sorry about my ESPN notifications. Wednesday saw Freddie Freeman score 11 for the Asphalt, and Seth Lugo put up 28 as they would have their highest scoring day of the week, putting up 129, holding that lead that they had taken on Friday. Thursday saw a 0-41 scoreline, nothing too interesting on either side outside of Taj Bradley with a 29-point bounce-back start. That is pretty interesting. I apologize for that. Sometimes I get a little ahead of myself in reading. Eduardo Rodriguez had 20 on Friday with Dustin May putting up 25. And through the end of the weekend, the Asphalt would hold their lead, closing it out with a strong 105-point day on Sunday. Reacquisition Connor Prelip did have a nice 26 points for the Locks, but they would end up losing the match 556 to 718 as the Asphalt break that 4-game losing streak that they were on. Obviously, very nice for the Asphalt to be able to break that streak there. You know, few tough losses in there definitely made that hurt a little more, but they were able to break it, and they are back on the winning side. For the Locks, some really strong performances from the guys you continue to see. Dylan Dingler, over 50 points on the week. And some encouraging signs on the pitching side as well. Taj Bradley, of course, returned on loan. Did have that one not great start, but continued with, a nice 27-point there. And Kevin Gausman, in his final start, did have that unfortunate -7, but as you will find out later, was flipped in what I think was a pretty good deal. For the Arizona Asphalt, it was really quite a spread out performance. 107 innings pitched for them, but they led in every single pitching category outside of saves. So just really a week where the pitching got it done. 409 points for the Asphalt in pitching, 236 for the Locks. So pretty big deficit there. The Locks actually won out on the batting side, 324 to 310. But of course that deficit on the pitching was just a little bit too much. Led there, as you know, by Yoshinobu Yamamoto. 71 points on the week did make him the number 3 potent pitcher. Bronx Bandoleros took on the Cuyahoga Black Panthers. Cuyahoga looking to tie up the Bronx in record and pull themselves into the same tier in terms of record. And it was a good start for the Black Panthers. 47 points on Thursday gave them the lead, 30 of them coming from Christian Scott and 14 from Francisco Alvarez. Friday saw the Cuyahoga Black Panthers hold their lead despite 22 over on the other side from the Bandoleros, and the same would be true on Saturday as they scored 50, 11 from Tatis, and a -6 from Grayson Rodriguez. On Sunday, the Bandoleros would take the lead back with their first 100-plus point performance of the matchup. Wyatt Langford had 14, and Yuri Perez had 32 on the day. Part of the reason they were able to take that lead is because of the minus 20 from Ryan Feltner over in Cuyahoga. But Fernando Tatis's 17 points certainly soothed the burn a little bit. Travis Bazzana scored 11, Jeremy Pena 13, Bryce Elder 23, Andrew Abbott 25, and George Kirby 33, all en route to the Cuyahoga Black Panthers, scoring 133 points on Monday and reclaiming the lead. Another strong day on Tuesday, scoring 123, 22 from Messick, 29 from Imai, and 15 from Fernando Tatis. Strong 25 from Chase Burns for the Bandoleros and 27 from Walba Urania kept things relatively close. But Cuyahoga would really start to pull away on Wednesday as we saw Jeremy Pena score 11 to the Black Panthers, 76 total, as they pushed 50 points ahead of the Bandoleros on that day. 26-31 on a quiet Thursday. But Friday, Friday things really kicked back up as the Bandoleros scored their second 100-plus point performance of the matchup. Roki Sasaki had 36 and Cam Schlittler had 44 with a 0-point day from Bryce Miller on the other side, leaving the door open to keep things close. Cuyahoga, however, held their lead again through Saturday as Rafael Devers scored 19, and they would close it out on Sunday, scoring 77 with 30 from Parker Messick. All things being said, Cuyahoga led 10 of the 11 days outside of that one day on Sunday where the Bronx did manage to take the lead away from them. For an 11-day week, it was a pretty close matchup, 103 points separating the two of them, 704 to 601. This was the fewest points in a win for Cuyahoga with that 704. But they had quite a few key contributors. Number 3, best batter Jeremy Pena with 65 points. Number 4, best batter Fernando Tatis with 62 points. Overall, for the Black Panthers, things went really well on the batting side. Obviously, we mentioned those two batters, so that shouldn't be too surprising, but they outscored the Bandoleros by over 100 points on the bats for the week. And guys like Devers in the 40s, Bazzana, who's refound his stroke, back in the 40s, and then, of course, Pena and Tatis in the 60s there. All good stuff for them. Bit of a mixed bag on the pitching side for both teams. Some really strong performances from guys like Abbott and Messick for the Black Panthers. Some not so great ones from them as well. Gage Jump recently acquired with a -5, and Ryan Feltner, of course, with that -20. Same was true over on the other side for the Bandoleros. Yuri Perez and Roki, along with Cam Schlittler, all really strong weeks, but some slower weeks on the relief pitching side, and maybe just short a few starts as well. Cuyahoga did just blow them out of the water in terms of total innings pitched, 107 to 78 there. So in the end, it seemed like volume definitely helped there, although the two teams did end somewhat closely. So an interesting little look there at quality versus quantity, and we talk so much about how valuable volume is, but on the other side, Bandoleros, although they had many fewer starts, I believe, let me take a quick look at the total starts in the week. Yeah, 10 to 15, so 5 fewer starts for the Bandoleros, but they didn't really have those kind of blow-up starts and actually ended up with more pitching points on the week. So interesting matchup to look at for sure there. Sliding down to the Fenton Melonheads versus the St. Petersburg Tropopologists. This was one of our closest matchups of the week. St. Petersburg took a narrow lead on Monday, 7-3. Both teams exploded for 100-plus points on Friday, 103 to 111 over on St. Petersburg's side. For the Melonheads, it came from a pair of Braves, Drake Baldwin with 11 and Matt Olson with 19. For the Tropopologists, they saw 31 from Cade Cavalli, and you thought it was fun when 3 guys had the same stat line. How about 4? All scoring 11 points. Sam Antonacci, Dalen Lyle, Carter Jensen, and Junior Caminero, totaling 44 points for the Tropopologists as they held their lead. Over 100 for both teams again on Saturday. 102 for Fenton, 13 from Schwarber, 2 from Shane Drowan, and a little bit of a disappointing match for him there. And 110 for the Tropopologists as Trevor Rogers continues to show out with 27 and Tarek Skubal looking like his old self with 39 points. Speaking of looking like their old self, Paul Skeens put up a strong 33 points on Sunday, but the 19 from Austin Riley and 22 from Drake Baldwin en route to Fenton's third straight 100-plus day would give the Melonheads the lead. They'd hold that on the next day thanks to 30 from Jose Soriano and a minus 14 from Braxton Ashcraft on the Tropopologist side. Trey Turner, however, did have 19 points on that day, keeping things just a little bit closer for St. Pete. Isak Paredes scored 11 on Tuesday as the Melonheads scored 38 in total, holding their lead, and the same would be true on Wednesday, 23 from King and 10 from Jordan. Over on the Tropopologist side, it was a strong day for pitching. 20 points from Emerson Hancock, 22 from Logan Henderson, and 33 from Cade Cavalli, all en route to a 101-point day that would just not be enough for them to take that lead back. Fenton held the lead on Thursday and through Friday as well, despite a minus 7 from Spencer Arrighetti. On Friday for the Tropopologists, two familiar names flared their heads again. Trevor Rogers with 28, outdoing himself by 1 point from his last start. Tarek Skubal doing the same, scoring 40, all en route to a 97-point day. Again, these score lines were very close, entering pretty much every day to this weekend. Brandon Young with 27 and Robbie Ray with 28 on Sunday for the Melonheads. Hunter Brown had 40 points of his own for the Tropopologists. However, things would kind of go downhill on Sunday for St. Petersburg as they scored only 16 points, and Fenton would put up another strong day with 92 points and close out the matchup. Jose Soriano putting up 23 and Kyle Stowers putting up 11 as the Melonheads would take the victory 774 to 692. 82 points separating the two of them was not quite our closest matchup. Look, this one did feature obviously some pretty impressive performances. Tarek Skubal, you certainly heard about. 80 points on the week. He is our number one potent pitcher, certainly looking like his old self once again. And on the Fenton Melonhead side, Drake Baldwin had 72 points as the number 2 best batter. The Tropopologists, again, I love to look at this sort of volume versus quality thing. The Tropopologists only had one fewer inning pitched, but outdid the Melonheads in Ks by about 9, in wins by 4, and about 17 fewer walks. So some real strong quality from St. Petersburg. Obviously, we know we are going to get that with guys like Hunter Brown, Cade Cavalli, Hancock, Trevor Rogers, Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal. I can go on and on. I'm interested to keep an eye on Braxton Ashcraft over the next few weeks, who obviously had that fantastic run and then a couple of somewhat disappointing starts. So we'll see if that was maybe just matchups, or if, he is turning down a little bit as the season goes on. But Fenton, I think, overall really ended up winning this matchup on the bats. 388 points from their batters, 324 from the Tropopologists. Things were very close, just about 15 points apart in terms of the pitching. So on the bat side is really where Fenton took the victory, and it was nicely spread out. Paredes had a strong week with 45. Austin Riley with 39. He seems to be heating up for the Melonheads, as well as their rookie J.J. Weatherholt. And boy, it's just nice to see Drake Baldwin hitting again. He had such a strong start to the year, and then of course, picked up that injury. That was a bit of a bummer there. Just in terms of the stats, they led in, the Melonheads, that is, they led in singles, they led in runs scored, home runs, RBIs, walks, total bases, a lot of the categories you want to see, and it just narrowly missed out on leading in extra base hits, 39 to 35 there. So, look, a strong week for both teams, obviously. I mean, it was, I want to say 3 points apart heading into the final day. So just a tough Sunday. I can't see it now. I'm pretty sure the Tropopologists were without any pitcher points on Sunday. Let me just take a quick... Oh, I apologize. They were not on Sunday the 26th. My mistake. But a couple of unfortunate negative points from the a pair of Dodgers relief pitchers contributed to that lower stat line there. So obviously a tough loss on that final day for St. Pete. But on the Melonhead side, nice to continue to secure themselves into that playoff spot. Matchup number 5 saw the North Pole Natty Bows take on the Valley Gift Lords. The Valley did take the lead on Thursday despite not scoring a point. North Pole with only -1 on that day. The Natty Bows, however, did take the lead on Friday. Brady Singer scored 32 points and Chris Sale scored 39 to total up 108 total on the day for the North Pole. The Valley would steal that lead away from them on Saturday, however, as they scored 146 points, 13 each from a pair of A's in Tyler Soderstrom and Jacob Wilson, 24 from Logan Webb, 27 from Jared Jones, and 35 from JT Ginn, as that trio of starters helped them overtake the lead. They would score 110 on Sunday to hold that, and 75 on Monday. Brandon Young had 34 in his final start in the Valley, and Sean Burke 36 for the Gift Lords. Over on the other side, Wilson Contreras had 12 points for the Natty Bows on Monday, but Pete Fairbanks had -12, offsetting that strong day from the Red Sox third baseman. Tuesday saw Chase DeLauder score 13 points for the North Pole, Shane Boz with 26, and Joe Ryan with -15, keeping the score a little bit lower at 35 total. 50 points for the Gift Lords, thanks to 25 from Tanner Bybee, helped them hold the lead. And they would do, the same on Wednesday, despite a 110-point day from the Natty Bows. On Wednesday, that was Wilson Contreras had another 11, Alec Boehm with 13, Brady Singer and Kyle Bradish each putting up 27 points for the North Pole. Chris Sale had 29 for them on Friday as they scored 73, but 115 from the Valley would let them maintain that lead. Kyle Tucker had 11 and Jaron Jones 27. Saturday saw the second straight 100-plus point day for the Gift Lords. 114 points thanks to 15 from Jung-Hoo Lee, 25 from Sean Burke, and 40 from Andre Palante. And on Sunday, despite not having any pitching points, James Wood put up 18 for the Gift Lords, and Munetaka Murakami put up 25 to help them comfortably close out the matchup, despite 118 points scored by the North Pole and their bevy of pitchers on the final day of the week. The Valley Gift Lords did take the matchup and tie themselves in record and on the standings with the North Pole Natty Bows. They won the matchup 875 to 721. The Gift Lords were our highest scorer of the week with that 875. And Chris Sale at 68 points on the week was the number 4 potent pitcher. The Gift Lords obviously did, great stuff with the bats, led by over 6 home runs, over 10 RBIs, led in runs scored. But frankly, their pitching is really what carried them this matchup. In total on, pitching points scored, they had 576 to just 393 for the North Pole Natty Bows. Things were closer on the batting side, with the Natty Bows actually scoring about 30 points more than the Gift Lords. So a little bit surprising there. Very cool, though, to see the Gift Lords kind of getting some showing out from the area that has not always been as strong for them. Take a look when you can. I don't need to read them all out, but click back to last week and look at Al Martinet's pitching. It is covered in 30-point weeks. And, of course, a really solid 54 from Jared Jones, who looks like he's returned from that injury really nicely. Great performances in the bullpen, too. They led in, in saves. They led in hits allowed, in earned runs, in losses, in wins, in Ks, in innings pitched, and in home runs allowed. That final one being one of the big tickets there. Just 5 home runs allowed by the Valley Gift Lord pitchers, 28 home runs allowed by North Pole pitchers. So, obviously, not anything that's breaking, but just an interesting little differential there that I was noticing. I was looking things over. Both of these teams obviously still very dangerous, and interestingly enough, now tied in record on the season. So they will both be looking to jockey for position on the standings poll, as it were. The Seoul Sovereigns took on the Joinville-friendly Capybaras for our penultimate matchup of the week. Seoul would take a 5-point lead on Thursday and then extend it with a big 105-point day on Friday. Troy Melton and Peter Lambert putting up strong starts for them with 23 and 29. Curtis Mead had 19 points for the Joinville-friendly Capybaras, and Reed Detmers with 31 on Friday as they put up 78 in total. 85 for the Sovereigns on Saturday as they would extend their lead, and 134 on Sunday to extend it further. Nico Horner and Geraldo Perdomo both with 13 points, and Shota Imanaga with 32, along with Nolan McLean putting up 37. Jackson Merrill had a strong 20-point day for the Capybaras, and Logan Gilbert had 29. Let's see. We were at Tuesday now as Yandy Diaz. I'm so sorry. It is a little bit tougher for me with these solo ones. So thank you all for sticking with me here. Tuesday saw 21-27 as the Sovereigns held their lead. Wednesday 114-95. Tommy Edmond had 12 and Hunter Dobbins had 29. The Sovereigns entered the weekend with the lead that they had taken on the first day of the matchup, and they would finish the matchup with the lead. 30 points from Shota Imanaga and 32 from Nick Martinez on Saturday. Another strong 10 from Jackson Merrill on the Capybaras side, but this did end up being our biggest blowout in a wire-to-wire win for the Seoul Sovereigns, 812-552, 260 points separating the two teams. As you would imagine, with a differential like that, Seoul led in most categories on both the hitting and the pitching side. No crazy differentials that really stood out, but they outscored on all fronts. 327 for Seoul's batters, 251 for the Capybaras batters, 489 for the Sovereigns pitchers, and 303 for the Capybaras pitchers. So overall, Seoul just kind of came in and took care of the business that they needed to take care of, obviously as a playoff team there. Overall, strong performances overall. You love to see 62 points from Shota Imanaga. He's been doing really well there. 54 from Nick Martinez, 55 from Nolan McLean. So the pitchers are really showing out over on Seoul's side. And then Geraldo Perdomo, who looks to be turning things back around, 44 points. Obviously, after his incredible season last year, things started a little bit slower to begin the year, but seems like he's figuring it out. Of course, the secret weapon for the friendly Capybaras is future AL MVP Curtis Mead, who they do employ. So just keep an eye on his name. No, I kid around. I am excited about that trade. I think it'll be good. And 27 points on the week, not too bad for him. 38, as well for Cole Young, a recent trade acquisition for the Capybaras. So that is definitely nice to see. Our final matchup of the week was, of course, the headliner that we previewed. It is the Battle of the Pacific Northwest, the Washington State Winners versus the Portland Pioneers. The two teams tied for record at the top of the leaderboard. They both entered on winning streaks. Portland on a 4-game winning streak, Washington on a 6-game winning streak. Ultimately, this matchup was to determine who is alone at the top of the standings. Portland took the lead on Thursday, scoring 17 points, and extended their lead on Friday with 109. Spencer Steer had 17 points, Wilyer Abreu had 19, and Sandy Alcantara had 25. A stronger Saturday for the Washington State Winners saw them score at 95 points, although 99 were scored over in Portland to help them maintain that lead. For the Winners, Brian Wu had 21 points and Stephen Kwan had 12, while Wilyer Abreu put up his second 19-point day in a row of the matchup on Saturday, and Spencer Torkelson had 20. CJ Abrams, you'll hear that name again, had 14 on Sunday for the Winners, but Native Aldi's -3 kept their score a little bit lower than perhaps Mike would have liked. Francisco Lindor had 19 for the Pioneers. Sonny Gray had 20, and Hunter Green had 26 in their strong 96-point day. 125 was the Washington State winners' score on Tuesday as they got their 100-plus point, their first one of the week. PCA with 12, Brandon Nimmo with 14, CJ Abrams with 20, Zach Wheeler with 28. Big day. The only real standout on the Pioneer side was 31 from Justin Wrobleski. However, the Pioneers, they would still hold that lead through Tuesday and through Wednesday as Sandy Alcantara put up a disappointing 6 points. But Griffin Jacks had a strong 30 for Portland. Sal Stewart with 11 and Nick Gonzalez with 12 over on the other side for the winners. The first really strong pitching performance of the week came on Thursday. Pitching performance for the winners, I should say. Really for either team. Pardon me, I had something a little bit mixed up. Gavin Williams, we're back to it. Gavin Williams with 41 points on Thursday. Inched things just a little bit closer, contributing to 53 of the winners' total points on the day. Just 17 scored on Portland, inched, the winners just a little bit closer there. And the same would be true on Friday as the Pioneers scored just 28, with PCA's 11 helping the Washington State winners on the way to a 44-point day. Pardon me. Saturday saw the winners score 103. PCA with 20. Nate Evaldi with 37. It was only kept from being higher with Brian Wu's disappointing 2-point day. It was a strong slate of starts for the Portland Pioneers. Sonny Gray, Hunter Green, and Dylan Cease. Well, those first two didn't go so well. Sonny Gray and Hunter Green each failed to record a point in disappointing outings for them. But Dylan Cease, with by far his best performance of the season, 56 points in a complete game shutout. Would have loved it to be against a different team, of course, but I will certainly take those points. And Portland would close things out despite a narrow finish on Sunday. The Pioneers scored 108, largely off the back of Drew Rasmussen's 41-point day. But with 5 starts going in Washington State, including Christopher Sanchez in Sunday Night Baseball, things were a little tense to close the week out. Bryson Stott had 17 also in that Sunday Night Baseball game. CJ Abrams again, this time with 18 points, and Christopher Sanchez with 21. This was our narrowest win of the matchup. So although the Pioneers did go wire to wire and take the matchup 833 to 801, only 32 points separated them. And over 11 days, that's pretty crazy. Unsurprisingly, obviously, for who the teams are, it was the most points in a loss on the week. This matchup did feature a couple of superlatives. CJ Abrams, our number one best batter with 94 points on the week. And Dylan Cease, number 2 potent pitcher with 72 on the week. So I'm going to start with the elephant in the room. When it comes to this matchup, Mike's starters did not perform very well. And I would imagine Mike would be the first one to tell you that. It was sort of an unbelievable thing as I kept looking at the matchup going, oh, geez, we got these guys. They're looking really good. And then they kind of wouldn't really show out. And it wasn't any super big negative performances, but just in the low teens, maybe even, high single digits. I think if you were to run this matchup 100 times, I would guess Mike probably wins this matchup 60 to 70 times. The fact of the matter is, Portland Pioneers got really, really lucky with the poor starting pitching performances over on the other side. Now, that being said, I think the team actually performed really well on their own, outscoring in terms of the pitching side by 60 points there, and as we mentioned, obviously, a little bit poorer on the pitching side there, but still putting up 368 on the batting side. Of course, the reason this was so close is because Washington State had an unbelievable week on the batting side, 421 points total. They led in almost every major category. Let's see, they led in hits, runs scored, singles, doubles, triples, RBIs, fewer strikeouts, more stolen bases, more total bases, more extra base hits. The winners just dominated on the bat side. Alec Burleson put up another great week. CJ Abrams, oh my God, I'm so glad to not be playing him again. Pete Crow Armstrong with 53 and Manny Machado with 50 points. Obviously, a name we were excited to keep an eye on over there. with his, pre-deadline trade. For the Pioneers, strong batters mostly came in recent trade candidates. 35 from Riley Green, 40 from Ketel Marte, and 41 from Corbin Carroll. Also, of course, that 43 from Wilyer Abreu. It's the best experience I ever had. All of that does mean that as we move down to our standing segment, the Portland Pioneers on a 5-game win streak are alone at the top of the league at 13-4. The Washington State Winners at 12-5 are in second place, with the Seoul Sovereigns at number 3, tied in record with them. Number 4 is Fenton Melonheads at 11-6, and the North Pole Natty Bows leads the fourth group of record holders at 10-7 in 5th place, with the Valley Gift Lords, our final playoff team, in 6th. Arizona Asphalt in the playoffs by record, but not by total points scored, as they are in 7th place, just behind the Valley. This is, of course, including today's matchups. These numbers are a little skewed, but just taking a look at total points scored right now, the Valley has 4,418 with Arizona, 8,418 with Arizona at 8,341. So certainly a surmountable lead, but something to keep an eye on there. Similarly with the Natty Bows, although they have a pretty good sized lead over the Valley Gift Lords, close to 200 points ahead of them. So that would have to be, a pretty big gap there. So North Pole, for the time being, seems pretty safe with those two, but it's going to be a really fun thing to keep an eye on for the Valley and Arizona as we head down the stretch here. Arctic Real Survivors at 8-9 are in 8th place. Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes need a win badly. They're on an L5 tied with the Real Survivors in record in 9th place. St. Petersburg Trop Apologists, Bronx Bandoleros, and Cuyahoga Black Panthers are all 6 and 11 at 10th, 11th, and 12th place. The Joinville Friendly Capybaras are 4 and 13 in 13th place, and the Sault Ste. Marie Locks are 3 and 14 in 14th place. Thank you for keeping things convenient there, folks. Yeah, that's where we're at with the standings. I don't know what to say. I don't want to talk about too much. I guess I will shout it out because I would want this to be done if I were, on the other side. Portland Pioneers that, finished 11th in the league last year and are currently leading the league with 4 weeks to go in the regular season. I do think that's pretty cool. I'm obviously very happy with what my team has done and how they've, sort of turned things around. And it was pretty cool to get to see, two teams tied in record kind of face off against each other like that, have that number one spot up for grabs in that way. Similar shout out to the Seoul Sovereigns, who finished, I believe in 10th last year, I want to say, maybe 9th. I think 10th place. No, 9th place it would be. I'm doing math for a 14-team league. Regardless, near the bottom of the poll, and they're up in 3rd place now. Again, tied with Washington State, winners of the league last year and reigning champions. So pretty cool stuff there. And yeah, Valley Gift Lords and Arizona Asphalt. I'm going to quickly take a look at the schedule because I'm very curious to see the next time these two teams match up, because obviously that is going to be a pretty exciting matchup. 4 weeks left. Obviously, we are currently in week 18 as you are listening to this. During week 19, the Valley faces Portland. During week 20, the Arizona Asphalt will be taking on the Real Survivors. And during week 21, let's see, is it that final week? Oh, that would be fun. It is not. The Arizona Asphalt take on the Washington State Winners. So, interestingly enough, those two teams don't face off against one another again. So, for both of them, things are kind of out of their hands and in their hands. They've got to win their matchups, and they've got to hope the other one loses. So, very interesting to keep an eye on. Let's talk through the claims corner. The first Monday was a very big one. Jonathan Bowland went for 22 to the Bronx. Nick Lofton for $10 to Cuyahoga. Jake Mangum for $10 to Cuyahoga as well. Tristan Peters for $5 to the Valley. Justin Foscue for $10 to Joinville. Jacob Webb for $26 to St. Petersburg. And Zach Thornton for $22 to the Real Survivors. Thursday saw Tommy Tanks, go for $5 to Arizona, the day of his call-up. Luke Bakar, we'll figure that out later. $15 went to the North Pole. They also bid $9 and got Andrew Kittredge. Kirby Yates for $8 as well to the North Pole, strengthening that bullpen. And Herberto Hernandez went for $18 to the St. Petersburg Tropopologists. Giovanni Moran for $1 and Colin Rea for $1 each went to the Real Survivors in the Valley on a quiet Monday. Thursday saw some pretty exciting transactions. Ty France, who is white hot, one of the best batters of the week, I believe the second best batter overall, but obviously wasn't rostered until Thursday, went for $30 to Seoul. Vaughn Grissom, who seems to have figured things out in Anaheim, $15 to Seoul as well. Luinder Avila went for $18 to the Washington State Winners. Cam Boozer for $14 to St. Petersburg. And Gabriel Hughes for $20 to the Joinville Capybaras, narrowly beating out a bid for Cuyahoga. Let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, it's just interesting. I'm definitely keeping an eye on things. We have 4 weeks of regular season, I guess 3.5 really now in terms of claim periods, and then 3 weeks of playoffs, just as bids are definitely continuing to get higher, as these teams, what do I need $200 for going into the offseason? That won't mean anything. So I am noticing that bids are just getting higher, and that will keep things pretty interesting. Time to move down to the transaction tracker. Obviously, in a long week like this, there are a lot of transactions to go through. So I have highlighted some. Some of them I'll just read out, and some I'll give quick hitter thoughts on. First one, we saw the Bandoleros trade Trevor McGill and Tyler Wells over to the Seoul Sovereigns for their 2028 first. Solid trade here for Seoul and for the Bandoleros. Great on both sides. Bandoleros get an additional first round pick, and Seoul Sovereign gets some some strong bullpen reinforcements. The Real Survivors traded Luis Castillo, Reynaldo Lopez, and Ben Hess, who is New York's number 6 prospect, over to the Southwest Kansas Rapid Coyotes for Shane Bieber and Brent Hedrick, who I believe is a reliever for the Yankees. Obviously, that trade has worked out pretty well for the Real Survivors with those 2 strong Shane Bieber starts. Sault Ste. Marie sent Matthew Boyd over to the North Pole for Devin Fitzgerald, who is MLB's number 85 prospect, North Pole's 2028 fourth, and $50 in FAB. The Bandoleros traded Jake Bowers to Washington State for Washington State's 2027 first and Michael Arroyo, who is number 40 on MLB's top 100 list. I hate to keep saying great trade for both sides, but I really do think it is a great trade for both sides. Jake Bauer's breakout looks very sustainable, and he has been unbelievable this year. And the Bandoleros, in a year where they're kind of trying to rebuild, are getting a late first-round pick in this upcoming draft and a top 40 prospect, which is really quality return for a guy that they got off waivers at the beginning of this year, I believe. So nice stuff there, obviously, for the Bandoleros. And for the Washington State Winners, they get a really strong bat to add to that already impressive offense. Tosh Bradley returns to Sault Ste. Marie along with Esmeralyn. Tosh Bradley returns to Sault Ste. Marie and Esmeralyn Valdez. Arizona and Cuyahoga's 2027 seconds return to the Bronx Bandoleros. The Bronx then turn and trade Mookie Betts and Esmeralyn Valdez over to the Real Survivors as they reacquire their own 2027 first. So Bandoleros, again, getting some more draft capital in this upcoming draft, shipping out a older guy in Mookie Betts, although still early 30s, and the young, explosive Esmeralyn Valdez to the Real Survivors, who are looking to, sort of build up their team a little bit, and I think if my memory serves me correctly, have a decent amount of draft capital as it is. Washington State Winners send Kyle Karros over to Joinville for Sault Ste. Marie's 2027 third. Sault Ste. Marie trades Carson Williams to Cuyahoga for Lou James Grover, who is Arizona's number 6 prospect and Cuyahoga's 2028 third. The Asphalt sends Sean Newcomb to the Washington State Winners for Tyson Harden, Milwaukee's number 9 prospect, and Sault Ste. Marie's 2027 third. Joinville trades Pete Fairbanks to the North Pole for a 2027 third and $10 in FOB. Bronx Bandoleros trade Tyron Guerrero over to Portland for a 2029 third and a Eugenio Suarez. Sounds like an overpay, obviously, for a set up relief pitcher in Tyron Guerrero. I was going to need to drop Eugenio anyway. And I was kind of like, hey, I'm going to throw him in. We'll see what it was. The deal was really for the 2029 third there. But I did want to point that out, that, I figured why not ship him out. And he's been dropped now anyway by the Bandoleros. So that experiment did not work out so well in Portland, unfortunately. The Real Survivors traded Garrett Clevenger to Arizona for a 2029 third. Washington State trades Kevin Gausman over to Sault Ste. Marie in exchange for Terramar Johnson, who is Pittsburgh number 11 prospect, and Arizona's 2028 third. I'm assuming that is, because that says 2023 third. Look, Washington State traded for Kevin Gausman, looking to get a little reinforcement on the pitching side. Things clearly did not work out that well. So he was shipped over to Sault Ste. Marie, who would obviously, again, then flip him. Terramar Johnson is I hate to use the term post-hype. He is no longer on the top 100, and he was formerly like a top 30 prospect. So this is, a guy who had a lot of hype in Pittsburgh a couple years ago. Hasn't quite lived up to that, but obviously has the talent, and we'll see if a little bit of Mike's magic sauce can get that back. Washington State sent Mickey Moniak over to the Asphalt for Sault Ste. Marie's 2029 second. Cuyahoga traded Jose Altuve to the Arctic Real Survivors for Trevor McDonald, Nolan Perry, who is number 93 on MLB's Top 100, and Washington State's 2027 fourth. Sault Ste. Marie trades Brandon Nimmo to Washington State for Alex Clemmy, who is Washington's number 14 prospect, and their own 2029 second, reacquiring that pick. Interesting one for one here. Cuyahoga trades Grayson Rodriguez to Sault Ste. Marie for Gage Jump. Gage Jump obviously has had a few nice starts this year, but has tailed off as of late. And Grayson Rodriguez, of course, we know the hype he once had a couple years ago, but hasn't quite lived up to it, and ended up getting it shipped out to Anaheim. So as I think KJ put so perfectly, he kind of has the space and freedom to see if Rodriguez can recapture that a little bit. And Cuyahoga taking a bet on a guy who earlier this year put together a nice few starts, and seeing if maybe you can stream the road starts a bit, of course, for Gage Jump, the athletic. Fenton sent Aroldis Chapman and Loris Butler over to the Valley in exchange for Brandon Young and George Soriano. Soriano, a relief pitcher there, and Brandon Young, a starting pitcher who has put up quite a few strong performances as of late. Aroldis Chapman, of course, being the big return for the Valley there. He's been so great since arriving in Boston last year. And Lawrence Butler, who has had a disappointing year, is finally shipped out the door for Fenton, and I believe has since been dropped. Interesting trade here. The Valley sends Ezekiel Duran over to Sault Ste. Marie in exchange for the Arizona Asphalt's 2028 first. So look, Ezekiel Duran obviously has had a very strong year, picked up off of waivers. And it seems like Sault Ste. Marie is kind of taking a bet that a guy like this will continue to do what he has done. Great fielder, we know, obviously, with Duran, and a very fast guy, so you definitely get those stolen bases. I'm just kind of taking a peek at his savant right now as we're seeing this. He's hitting the sweet spot a lot, which is definitely good to see. A little bit iffy on some of the, chase numbers and hard hit rate, but at the same time, Duran has been putting up the numbers you want to see. So I think especially when you have the number of first-round picks that a team like Sault Ste. Marie has, you can maybe take a bet on something like this. And for the Valley, awesome work to, cash it in. And this will just be an interesting one to keep on. I think Duran is not typically the type of player I expect to see traded for a first, even, a couple years down the line. So it'll be really interesting to keep an eye on, and, see how he continues to fare in Texas, and on the locks there. Sault Ste. Marie traded Brandon Marsh to Cuyahoga for Trevor McDonald and Blaze Alexander. Sault Ste. Marie trades Drew Jones to Washington State for their 2028 fourth. Fenton gets off the Luis Robert train, sending him over to Cuyahoga to reacquire their own 2027 second. Cuyahoga trades Chase Petty and Nick Lofton to Sault Ste. Marie for a 2027 second. Sault Ste. Marie trades Connor Prelip to the Arctic Real Survivors in exchange for Andrew Alvarez and Cuyahoga's 2028 second. We'll come back to that trade in just a second. Sault Ste. Marie trades AJ Minter to the North Pole for a 2027 fourth. Interesting one here. Washington State sends Braden Montgomery over to the North Pole in exchange for Seaver King, who is number 75 on MLB's Top 100, and a 2029 second. Of course, Braden Montgomery, interesting. He was the principal return in the Bo Bichette deal earlier in the year between Mike and me. So definitely interesting to see him get moved on from there. Started out very strong, has had good days as well, but definitely has a little bit more swing and miss than I think you typically like to see. Obviously, he's young. 3 points per game is solid, but looked like he just didn't quite have space in Mike's outfield. So recoups some prospect capital there, and a nice young bat for the North Pole. Speaking of that, Kevin Gausman flipping that I mentioned earlier. Sault Ste. Marie does send Kevin Gausman over to the North Pole in exchange for Chandler Simpson. So young, fast, exciting outfielder in Chandler Simpson goes to Sault Ste. Marie. Hopefully a guy that they can make a piece of their team moving forward. And Kevin Gausman, the veteran, goes to the North Pole as they make a push to make it a deeper into the playoffs this year. Let's see. So we come back to it. So Connor Prelip is then traded back to Sault Ste. Marie in exchange for Arizona's 2027 first. Yes. So the Arctic Real Survivors in the end kept Connor. Oh, no. They traded Andrew Alvarez and Cuyahoga's 2028 second for Arizona's 2027 first, so a late round first in this upcoming draft, while Sault Ste. Marie held on to Connor Prelip, and then of course got Andrew Alvarez and that second round pick out of there. Bit of tough news, obviously, that Andrew Alvarez has since been demoted to the minors, but does look like an interesting young pitcher for Washington. Overall, I have to say, I think really good business by the Real Survivors here to be able to kind of get that first round pick. I'm always about top draft capital. But I also know that Sault Ste. Marie, definitely a team that likes to collect sort of in volume. So having all of those different assets can definitely be helpful. And a tangible piece, young piece in a guy like Alvarez is certainly nothing to be upset about. Alvarez, let's see, how old is he? Yeah, he's 27. So a younger guy, sort of, making his way into Washington's starting rotation. Just a few more to go. The Real Survivors sent Framber Valdez to the Washington State Winners for Emmanuel Rodriguez, who is number 53 on the MLB Top 100, and North Pole's 2029 second. Nice trade for both teams. I really like Emmanuel Rodriguez. He's a prospect I had my eye on this offseason. Somebody I think the Real Survivors can definitely work to, could be a good piece for them in a year or two. And in this year, the Washington State Winners get Framber Valdez and hopefully a playoff push. Tough first start for him, but KJ was telling me that he apparently has built quite a nice little dynamic with Dylan Dingler. So hopefully that can settle things down for our friend Framber just a little bit. On the final day of the week, Arizona sent Ryan Jeffers over to Portland for a 2028 third. Following the news of that Shea Langoliers injury. And finally, I love this trade. This is a really interesting one. The Bronx Bandoleros send David Bednar over to the North Pole in exchange for Ethan Holiday, number 17 on MLB's Top 100. So very highly ranked prospect here. And obviously David Bednar, all-star. I can't remember if he was an all-star this year, but certainly has been an all-star even with the Yankees. Great closer for them. And Ethan Holiday is obviously an interesting young prospect. He's got the name pedigree in Holiday. A little bit more swing and miss than his brother, but also a little bit more power than his brother. And in a ballpark like Coors, that could be a really, really interesting combination. So Bandoleros selling just a little bit extra on this year, trading a guy like Bednar. But getting a really quality piece and reuniting the Holiday brothers in the process. That is, of course, always fun to see with, JMC being a longtime Jackson Holiday believer and employer. Alrighty, that is all of it. Before we get on to next week's notes, just a quick programming update. Again, thank you for, your patience, and I apologize. I know this hasn't been the best episode here with just me kind of yapping at you. Should be back to normal with 2 hosts next week on Sunday. Of course, coming up next week as well is the trade deadline on Monday night. It is at midnight Eastern, so 9 o'clock Pacific. My plan is to fire up the mic at 9:01 Pacific just to do a little trade deadline recap. Obviously, last year the trade deadline was super, super fun. I know the Zach Wheeler deal was on that day where he was sent from Arizona over to Washington State in exchange for, I think, Cam Smith, Freddie Peralta, and maybe Hurston Waldrop. If my memory serves me correct. Chase DeLauder going the other way as well. That was obviously a big trade. I think the Francisco Lindor trade might have been on deadline day. So it certainly didn't disappoint last year. And I'm hoping to do, just a short, probably 10, 15-minute deadline special on Monday following the episode on Sunday. So definitely keep an eye out for that. If, it is a quieter day, there's only 1 or 2 minor trades, probably won't fire up for that. But as long as there's something exciting to talk about, I will be hopping on the mic. Let's talk about next week's matchups. This week's matchups, I guess I should say, as we're speaking. Joinville at 4-13 is taking on the Bronx Bandoleros at 6-11. Sault Ste. Marie at 3-14 is taking on the Valley Gift Lords at 10-7. The Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes at 8-9 are facing off against the Washington State Winners at 12-5. St. Petersburg Tropopologists at 6-11 take on the 8-9 Arctic Real Survivors. A little bit of a pod bowl coming up for you as the Portland Pioneers at 13-4 take on the 10-7 Arizona Asphalt. Cuyahoga at 6-11 take on the North Pole Natty Bows at 10-7. And our headliner matchup for the week, Fenton Melonheads versus the Soul Sovereigns at 11-6 and 12-5. Fenton, with a win, would tie themselves up with the Soul Sovereigns, who are currently in 3rd place. So Fenton does have a chance to sort of push into that round where they would be tied for 3rd place. And they do have the tiebreaker over Soul right now. So this is a little bit of a battle for 3rd place. They're obviously tied as well with Washington State, depending... depending all on their whether they win or lose this coming week. Washington State could pull into sole possession of 2nd place with a win and a Sovereigns loss. Washington State and Sovereigns loss, and obviously that would mean a Fenton Melonheads win, would tie the 3 teams. So that would certainly be interesting there. That's definitely the one I got a close eye on. Portland and Arizona is interesting too. Obviously, don't want to highlight my own matchup too much, but Arizona looking for that win to, force themselves back into the playoff picture, going up against the league leader right now in Portland. And there was one other that I was looking at that I kind of liked. I won't hold you all here any longer. Again, thank you, folks. I know this wasn't the best episode. It's definitely not as much fun when I don't have one of my co-hosts on here. So thank you for sitting through. Hopefully it was at least entertaining and you got something out of it. I'm looking forward to being back with you on Sunday with our regularly scheduled episode. Oh, God, that was terrible. All right. Have a good one, everyone. I'll talk to you soon.
Do you know what that makes you, Larry?
Lollygaggers.
Lollygaggers.